Hello everyone, a very good morning. My name is Prashant. I welcome you all to AWS Architect Training by Edureka. Guys, can you quickly confirm if my voice is audible and is my screen visible? Guys, am I audible? Is voice coming through clear to all of you? Yes. All right. Thank you so much for the quick confirmation. So we'll wait for another 2 to 3 minutes and then we'll start with our today's session. All right, once again, very good morning. My name is Prashant. I welcome you all to AWS Architect Training by Edureka. Guys, can you all quickly confirm those who have just joined in? Can you all quickly confirm if my voice is audible and is my screen visible? Because others who have joined earlier had already confirmed, but the folks who have just joined in, can I have your confirmation, please? Great. Thank you so much for your quick confirmation, right? So now, before I get started with our today's session, it's important that, there are a few things which I want to make it clear, right? So one thing, there was one particular feedback which I want to address before I start with our today's session, telling that, details about AWS, the career orientation about AWS, and why AWS and all this detail has to be discussed in the session. So looks like, that person has missed the first session, because in our session one, we talked in detail about this. Okay. So not sure if you have attended that first class, right? But in our day one session, when we talked in detail about, what is AWS, right? Why one should consider moving from on-premises towards AWS, and how moving to AWS will meet your business requirement and purpose. So this is one thing which I want to acknowledge. Second, there was one particular feedback telling that, there are no real-time examples. So just want to keep you informed, we have just completed 2 sessions, right? It's not been a long that, we have discussed a lot of technical part. On day one, we were talking about the fundamentals, right? On day two, again, there was part of fundamentals. Now today is day 3, where we will start with some tools and other discussions, right? So just wanted to ensure that your feedbacks are acknowledged, right? So now let's move forward and get started with our day 3 from where we left in our yesterday's session, right? So yesterday we saw on how to create your S3 bucket. Yesterday we saw on how to create your S3 bucket, and we saw on how to add object to your S3 bucket, right? And how each object will have a unique URL, and if you want, you can make certain object public. If you don't want, you can keep it private. The choice is yours as a business, right? So this is something which we discussed till yesterday. So anyone has any questions, doubts, queries till then? Are we all good? Everyone, can I move forward? Great. Thank you so much for the confirmation. Thank you so much for the confirmation. So I'm back on my AWS console, right? So on my AWS console, again, I'll click on services, under services, storage, under storage, S3. So I clicked on S3, right? So I had deleted the bucket which we created yesterday. So I'm creating once more. So I'll say demo 03 160621, right? Remember, the bucket name has to be unique. So I say create bucket. Now my bucket is created. Now my bucket is created. So today we will move a bit forward. We will talk about how to ensure, if I have this bucket created. Yesterday we had to make every object public one by one, right? If I have hundreds of objects, then making them one by one public sometimes become really tedious task. And there are probabilities that when you have hundreds of objects, you could miss out on certain object. Agree with me on this? Yes. So if the number of objects are small, less in number, you can easily do that job one by one. But imagine you have thousands of objects in a bucket. So there are probability that doing this job manually will become really difficult. So we will try to understand, is there a way that we can do this by one-time configuration, so that you make this one-time configuration and all the objects in your bucket are public. You don't have to one by one do them, right? This is one thing which we will try to discuss. And apart from that, normally to host a website, what is that we require? I want to understand from each and everyone, to host your website, what is that we require? Web server. Agree? We require a web server, compute, on top of which we can host our application. Apart from that, we require our domain. Yes or no? We require web server and domain. Now what AWS says, that if you have a simple static website, don't spend your money or don't waste your money having a dedicated server to just run that simple static website. If you want to host a simple static website, you can do that on your S3 bucket as well. You can use your S3 bucket, right, for that. Yes, S3 bucket can be used for hosting a simple static website. This is not suitable for your dynamic website, but yes, in case if you have a simple static website, definitely you can go ahead and depend on your S3, and it should be good to go. It should be good to go, right? So now let's go ahead and do that configuration. I'll click on properties. Under properties, the last option is your static website hosting. Under properties, the last option is all about hosting a static website on S3. Say edit, say enable, say edit, say enable. So it will ask you for your index page. So I say index.html, right? And I say save changes. Now, once I've done this, once I do this, I've enabled, right, my S3 website to host a simple static website. I've enabled my S3 to host a simple static website, right? So this is the website URL. This is the website URL. Currently it says 403 forbidden access denied. Currently it says 403 access denied. So, but this is the URL on which you should be able to access my website. So right now it's a permission related issue. So let's fix that permission related issue. I've not added any object so far in this bucket. So now I click on permissions, right? Currently it says under the access, it says bucket and objects not public. So I edit this. I unblock this. This is the first part which I'm gonna do. I'm gonna edit and I'm gonna unblock this. So once this is done, it says objects can be public. It is choice. It says object can be public. Now I don't want to go ahead and define permission on every object level. I want to ensure all the objects in this bucket are public. Then how do I ensure that is? Click on your bucket policies, say edit. If you want all the objects in this bucket to be public, right? Click on this bucket policy, say edit, say policy generator. Now with policy generator, what you're going to do is you're going to define a bucket policy for this particular S3 bucket. So here
say S3 bucket policy. Then it would ask you, do you want to write an allow statement or a deny statement? What kind of policy are you planning to write? Is that an allow policy or a deny policy? So I'm going to say I want to write an allow policy. Do you want everyone to be everything to be accessible? I say star. Yes, everything. Right now, in case if it is a website, pay attention. I want your responses quickly. In case if it's a website, what kind of access should I be allowing on my S3 bucket? In terms of HTTP message, I would request your responses. In case of HTTP messages, exactly I got one right answer. If it is your, in case if it's your website, so what kind of access should I be allowing? HTTP messages, think of it. Can I say HTTP GET request? Yes or no? Here under action type, should I be allowing it as GET messages, GET objects basically? So here we have so many options that can be configured. We are going to allow what? GET object access. Right? Now then it will ask me for your bucket ARN, Amazon resource name. Now I had to find Amazon resource name. Here it is. Copy this, come back here, paste it up. Right? Then if you want to define certain conditions, yesterday someone was asking me this. Like, Prashant, can I define a condition telling only this set of users should be able to access, or only from this IP address should it be accessible? So you have choices here. You have those choices here, right? If you want to restrict from source IP, if you want to restrict on the basis of user agent, username, there are so many choices which are available. You can define that under your condition. Like, let's say I want to restrict it with user ID. Allow only if user ID equals, right? So I can define those kind of conditions. Right now I'm not giving any conditions, okay? And I'm generating a policy. So this is the policy. Though, ideally it should be written in a JSON format, but if you don't have JSON expertise, right, you can leverage on this policy generator. So whatever you define in the GUI, it will generate a JSON format for it and give you a JSON format policy. Guys, are we all clear what is the purpose of your bucket policy? Everyone, are we all clear? Is it allow or deny? I have written an allow policy. Rizwan, you have a choice. If you want to deny it, you want to deny certain action on the bucket level, right? You can do that. So whatever is the effect, it will filter the traffic. If the policy says allow traffic, if the effect is allow, and in the condition you are defined certain IP address or certain thing, then it will allow only from those IP addresses. So this bucket policy, understand, this is not only applicable for your static website hosting. This is normally in your bucket. If you want to restrict certain accesses, right, bucket level to all the object, then you can define this kind of bucket policy. Right now, why I said get object, because we are hosting a static website. So when someone is accessing your data from your website, it is an HTTP GET request which is generated. Yes or no? Are we? Am I making sense? So that is why we have defined get object. But apart from that, you can use this bucket policy to define any conditions for your bucket. And these are not your access policy, these are your bucket policy. Guys, are we all on the same page? So I say save changes. Nimai, are we clear now? Prasanna, are we clear now? And now earlier it was saying objects can be public. Now does it say object is public? If you pay attention. So objects in this bucket are publicly accessible. Earlier where it was saying 403 forbidden. Now if I see, it says 404 not found. Why not found? Because we have still not added our index.html file here. Right? So now I'm going to add that file. So I have this index.html file. I'll edit it first. Save this. Come back. Upload this file. Add file. Upload. Now, if you notice, I have my S3 website. I have website hosted from S3. Guys, all of you can try on your browser and let me know if you see a similar outcome on your screens. Yes? Anyone has any confusions, doubts? Any confusions or doubts? So this is how you configure your S3 bucket to host a simple static website. This is how you use your S3 bucket to host a simple static website. Access policy is different. This is a bucket policy, Nimai. Access policy I'll talk about. Let's wait for a moment. I'll talk about. So now if you would have noticed one thing, I did not make this object public. I uploaded this file index.html, right? I uploaded this file index.html. I did not make this public. It was automatically accessible. Yes or no? So that is the advantage of your bucket policy. That is the advantage of your bucket policy. So if we talk about the other permission type, see, we talked about the bucket setting. Next, we discussed about the bucket policy. Now next, there is something called as access control list. Now access control list is nothing but on every object level when you're defining the permissions, right? There you use your access control list. When you don't have your bucket policy, but you're defining permissions on every object level, right? Everyone, whether you want to give read only access, read write access and all of that, or you want to allow access only to certain group of users, right? So that is what you define using your access control list. But this would be again on every object level kind of thing. This would be again on every object level. If you notice, object list, write, list, read and write. So this is for every object level. Are we clear? Whereas bucket policy is for all the objects in that bucket. Now, this is the first part of discussion which I wanted to talk about how you can use your S3 bucket to host a simple static website. Now there was a question that, when we are configuring this, okay, all of this configuration, is there any firewall or something which checks this configuration or which blocks this configuration, right? Like, how is this configuration being read? How are this policy being interpreted by something? So let me tell you, it is a managed service by AWS, right? So AWS have appropriate configuration at their end. So whenever you make any bucket configuration, bucket policy configuration, or access control configuration, all of that, the relevant JSON tabs, right, or JSON blobs are activated, and that indeed will ensure the relevant access is allowed or restricted. Venkat, is your question answered? We don't have that complete visibility, okay, because that is completely managed by AWS. So, but just to give you on a very high level, what happens whenever you configure this, so relevant JSON blobs are activated, are turned on. So if those JSON blobs are turned on, so in the flow, those things are checked. In the traffic flow, those, AWS ensures those parameters are checked. Now, let me understand one thing from all of you. Now that we have uploaded this particular website, right? Currently, if you notice on this screen, there is nothing. Now, over the period of time, can I say it can have multiple versions? Something like this. Over the period of time, there can be change in the code or something, and it can have multiple versions, right? Yes or no? Let's say after 3 months, after 4 months, after 6 months, right? My organization might think to make some changes with the code. So there would be a latest version of this application. Now, let's say if I'm uploading this file, I have saved this, I have written version 1 and I have saved this. Okay. If I'm uploading this latest version, understand very clearly. I'm uploading this latest version. I say upload. If this is uploaded, you would notice here the outcome shows version 1, which means what? Latest version has taken the effect. But here I want to bring your attention. I don't have older version of the file. I don't have older version of the file. So in future, if I want to check the version control, there is no provision here by default. There is no provision here. But if you enable this particular configuration, and right now, please pay attention here. Right now, there is nothing. So very soon on this screen, I'll show you some changes. So you click on properties. You have something called as bucket versioning. You have something called as bucket versioning. Click on edit, say enable. Click on edit, say enable, save these changes, right? Once you enable this, go back to your objects page. Do you notice there is a new page, there is a new option called show versions? Yes. So only if you enable versioning, this option would be available for you to see. By default, this is not there is no such option available. Once you have enabled versioning, it will show you this. So if you click on this, you'll be able to see version. This is the version 0. Whatever is uploaded, the current version is called as version 0. Now I make any changes. Let's say version 2. Okay. I made these changes. I come back here. I say upload. I add a file, right? I upload this version 2, right? So version 2 is uploaded. If I refresh here, I should be able to see version 2. Yes, I'm able to, right? Close this. Still, there is only one master file, but this one master file has two versions. So this arrow L shape, if you notice here, I want to bring your attention to this L shape. This L shape indicates what? This is the current version and this was the previous version. The L shape indicates this is the current version and this was the previous version, right? So for one file, I have one, already versions available. Now if I make version 3 also, right? I'm uploading this new version once again. I say upload. Obviously, as the outcome change will happen, I should be able to see version 3 outcome. And if I come back here, still the same one master file, but I have 3 versions. This is the latest version. Before this was the version. And before this was the version. Are we all clear what is the purpose of versioning? How it helps? How many versions can we maintain? As such, there is no limitation. But one thing which I want to bring your attention to, even when you're saving your versions, it will charge you. Even for the versions which are saved, it will charge you. Null version is the original file, version 0 of your file. It is not your latest version. Null version is your version 0. So as an object, pay attention. As an object, there is only one object. As an object, there is only one object. But for this object, there are multiple versions. Only if you click on show versions, you will be able to see this. Okay. Now there's a question. Without making file public, how we are seeing the HTML page on the new screen? So Madesh, did you understand the purpose of bucket policy? We were talking about bucket policy some time back. Madesh, did you notice that? So it is because of the bucket policy which we configured. Remember, I told you when you configure your bucket policy, you don't have to make every object public. You configure it once and all objects, on all objects that policy would be applicable. Guys, are we all clear what is the purpose of your versioning, how it works? Any doubts, any queries? If we do not enable versioning, obviously it will not cost you, but you will not have that older versions. And obviously if it is not, having older versions, it will not charge you for that. So when you don't want to spend money for it, don't enable versioning. If you say, no, I want my older versions also, right? So it will charge for that. Versioning is chargeable means for all the 3 versions will be charged separately. See, this is not charging on number of versions. Understand very clearly. It is not charging you on the number of versions. It is charging you on the size of data. So if you notice this, so you're getting charged for 792 bit, 792 bit, 792 bit. Imagine if this is a 1 GB file. So 1 GB, 1 GB, 1 GB, you will be charged for 3 GB in total. Are we clear? Because this is your storage. So storage will be charged on the basis of amount of data you store. If you're storing only 1 GB of file, they'll charge you for only 1 GB. If you're storing 10 GB of file, they'll charge you for 10 GB. The logic is that simple. Now, where can I find the details of charges and stuff? So here it is. I was about to come to this, but since so many people asking the same thing, I think it is important that I take you to this part. Now there was one more question which I want to address right now. Good that we have this coming up right now. Okay. There was a question telling that if I am hosting my website, that will come with a cost because whenever user access data, it would be chargeable. Absolutely. So here is the calculation. Here is the calculation how they are going to charge, how much they are going to charge, right? Because they have given a detailed calculation how the charges are, right? So the charges are for data transfer out of your network, data transfer in and transfer out. There are different ways in which they charge you, right? There are different ways in which they charge you. So one of the aspect is, Madesh had asked me this question, that if I'm hosting a website in S3, whenever my user access that, obviously I would get charged. Yes, that is very true. You will get charged. But 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 will it be charging the user or me? The choice is yours. You have an option here in AWS. You can ask the requester to pay for it. But in ideal cases, it will be the organization who is hosting that website would be liable to pay, right? So assume that you store some 100 GB of data in S3, right? For 15 days in March and 100 terabytes of data for 16 days in the March. At the end of March, you would have following number of bytes, right? Total, right? So the charges is for total amount of data or the number of bytes per hour you're storing. Number of bytes you're storing. So here the charges is not on basis of number of objects, total number of objects that are stored. And obviously, apart from that, they charge you for the data transfer in and transfer out. There are charges for data transfer in and data transfer out. So there is certain bucket telling that, up to 10 TB, this is the charges. Beyond 10 TB, there is certain charges. Beyond 50 TB, there is certain other charges, right? So amount of data request, HTTP GET request, even on that basis, they charge you. So you have a detailed pricing chart. You can refer to this. Okay. So you'll have more insight on how they are charging you. Is that making sense to all of you? Please refer to this particular pricing chart. There you have a detailed input on how they charge you, right? Because nothing is for free in cloud also. It will come with a cost, but there is a lot of difference. There's a lot of difference that you don't have to make any upfront payment. If I have 1,000 objects under a bucket, instead of making 1,000 visible to public, I want to make only 500 public and other private. How do we do that? What is the best way? So yesterday, whatever we discussed, per object permission is what you need to define. In that case, you cannot use your bucket policy. In those cases, per object level permission is the best way to go ahead with. His charge will also depend on the business traffic. Obviously, number of GET requests. If you're hosting a static website, right, they would charge you for the amount of requests which are received on your website. You notice, but these charges are very, very minimal. For per 1,000 GET requests, they hardly charge you some amount. You pay attention to this. Guys, don't get worried that they are charging you. But understand the charges are very, very minimal. They're not charging you per dollar for, $1 for every request. For first 1,000 requests, per 1,000 requests, they're charging you hardly this amount. For your free tier account, I'm not telling that they'll charge you, but I'm telling about your business account. Obviously, for your free tier account, it is for free for 1 year. There is certain limitations again with that also. Remember, I told you, I shared you a link yesterday, right? What is for free, how much is for free, how long it is for free. Please refer to that. But for your business account, this is how they'll charge you. Are we all clear with this? Can I move forward? So put post when you want to upload your data to your S3 buckets, let's say I have an application ABC. Understand? Okay, couple of people asking why put, post, and all of that when we have only get as your bucket, your website. So let's say I have an application ABC, right? Now I have configured my application in such a way that any user data which is getting uploaded, it should be directly stored in my S3 bucket. So can I say that would be like a push put object? Yes or no? So in those cases, your put and all of that will come into picture. Put is like when you want to upload something to your bucket using programs and using automations. Guys, are we clear? Rizwan, is your question answered? Venkat, is your question answered? When signed up for a business account, it is 100 per month, then traffic is charged separately or comes under 100 GB per month. The traffic is obviously charged separately. See, this is your storage. You're storing 100 GB. Obviously, they'll have to monetize that 100 GB. Now, let's say if I'm an organization XYZ, I say I'm going to store that 100 GB. Okay. But I enabled the static website hosting. Don't charge me for the traffic coming in and going out. That is not possible, right? At the end of the day, they are also in the business. They want to monetize something. So that would be separately chargeable. Please refer to this pricing calculator, this pricing sheet. You will have more clarity. So now moving on to the next part of discussion. Now moving on to the next part of discussion, which is about your data high availability. Which is about data high availability. Let's say I have this bucket in Mumbai region. Let's say I have this bucket in my Mumbai region. Now, what my management says is, Prashant, please ensure if Mumbai region goes down, our business should not be impacted. Our business should not be impacted. Our data should be highly available. So what is the choice in front of me? Everyone, guys, able to follow my question? If you respond, I'll understand. So data replication, to have this in another availability zone. No, I'm saying entire Mumbai region is down. Understand, my dear friends? We should have one more region. We should have our bucket hosted in one more region. Do you agree with me? So as per the requirement of business, what I do is I create one more bucket. As per the business requirement, I create one more bucket. Let's call demo, and I'll say this as SG. I choose Singapore location. Okay. So this is Singapore region. So I'm saying that if my Mumbai region goes down, or the data which is stored in my Mumbai region is backed up in my Singapore region. Okay, that bucket is already existing with this name. So let's see if this works. Yeah. Okay. So now pay attention. I have a bucket in Mumbai region, and as a backup, I've created a bucket in Singapore region. Now, creating bucket alone wouldn't suffice the requirement. Creating bucket alone wouldn't suffice the requirement because business don't want to have a backup bucket. What business wants is the object which are stored in my Mumbai should also be available in Singapore. Yes or no? That is the end goal. The end goal is to ensure the object is highly available. The data is highly available. Correct? Now, does that mean that if I'm uploading a file in my Mumbai bucket, the same file I'll have to upload in my Singapore bucket. Agree with me? It obviously means that. So Prashant, if you have one file getting uploaded to your Mumbai bucket, upload the same file in your Singapore bucket. So if it is one or two files on daily basis or 10 files on a daily basis, we can do this job manually. But imagine on a daily basis, if hundreds of files are to be uploaded, can we do this job manually? First upload those 100 files in Mumbai bucket and then upload the same 100 files in your Singapore bucket. Do you think it is, something which you can do manually on daily basis? Obviously no. It's a tedious task, and at times there are possibility that we miss out on this. There are probabilities of human errors, right? And also it's a time consuming job, choking your internet bandwidth and all of that, right? So to fix this kind of problems, AWS has a choice. AWS says, okay, from which bucket to which bucket you want to ensure the data is highly available. So I say from Mumbai to Singapore. AWS says not a problem. Go to your management section. Under management section, you have something called as replication rule. Under your management, you have something called as replication rule. Say create replication rule. Say create replication rule. Give a name to that rule, anything which you wish to. So I say demo 01. Okay. Now, after that, it says your source bucket is demo 03 16 06 21, which is in Asia Pacific Mumbai region. Do you want to replicate all the objects from this bucket? Do you want this rule which you're creating to be applicable to all the objects? Or you want to replicate only certain file types? Like say example, only files with .pdf extension, file with .jpg extension. Only those files should be replicated, or all your data from Mumbai has to be replicated in your Singapore? I say all for now. Okay. I say all the objects. Now, is that other bucket to which you want to replicate, is that bucket in your AWS account or some other AWS account? See, even it allows replication in other AWS accounts also. So I say it is in my AWS account only for now. So select that bucket. So demo SG1606, which is your Singapore bucket. Okay. So I select that bucket. Now it requires something called as IAM role. We'll talk about what this is in our upcoming sessions, right? For now, just understand that it requires something IAM role. So after you have defined this, save this. After you have defined this, save this. Now, once your replication rule is created, pay attention to one thing very clearly. The buckets are in replication mode, not in your synchronization mode. Buckets are in replication mode, not in your synchronization mode. Now, why I'm telling this is it is not going to reflect the data which is already existing. Now, say example in this Mumbai bucket, say example in this Mumbai bucket, there was a file called index.html that will not get replicated to your Singapore bucket. After you have configured this rule, if you upload any object, let's say I'm adding a file now, right? Let's say demo 4. After the rule is configured, anything which I upload will get replicated in my Singapore bucket. Pay attention, I have uploaded this in which bucket? In my Mumbai bucket. And this is my Singapore bucket. If I refresh here, it would take few moments, maybe some 20-30 seconds, right? And you should see the demo 4 file available in your Singapore bucket also. So let us allow that few moments. Why? Is the rule configured? Rule configured, then it should get replicated. It might take sometimes, a bit longer. Allow one moment. One moment, please. Hmm. So it should have replicated the file by now. Why it did not? Okay, let me do one more time and upload. Let me upload a file once more. Another file maybe. Okay. Now let us wait if this file should get replicated. Because yeah. Okay. Yeah, demo 4 also got replicated. So it took a bit longer. Now we should see demo 5 also getting replicated in a while. Okay. Maybe some latency. But this auto replication will be taken care of. Guys, am I making sense? You notice demo 5 is also replicated now. And this is my Singapore bucket here, SG. Guys, so any object which you upload, okay, any object which you upload here will automatically get replicated provided you have configured this replication job, replication rule. Okay. Now this is completely taken care of by AWS. It is completely taken care of by AWS. So we cannot see that replication job, how it is configured and all of that. For us, we have only this dashboard visibility, which we can define. In case if it is failed, is there any logs we can check? By default, you know, these jobs do take place without any challenges. So there is no specific logs that you can check for this. Okay. You can only view details of what is configured. There is no specific logs telling that, hey, you know, that did not work or this did not take place. There is no such configuration available. Are we all clear? Can we charge? Obviously, this comes with a cost. If you're replicating your data, it will come with a cost. Okay. If you're replicating this data in your Singapore bucket, it will be chargeable again. It is not for free. Data replication is chargeable. If I need the older files also to be available in Singapore bucket, then how do we do it? You will have to manually upload it in your Singapore bucket. That is one of the option, or re-upload those files in this particular Mumbai bucket so that it will automatically get replicated there. Are we clear? You don't have provision that you can, you know, whatever was uploaded before the replication was configured, you don't have a provision that it will also get synchronized and it will get uploaded. So there is no such provision. You'll have to manually upload it or re-upload those files and it would get replicated there. Why? I'll tell you why the previously existing files are not getting replicated. There is a reason behind it. See, whenever replication happens, it will only have one version of the file. Okay, whatever is uploaded at that point of time. Now in your previous bucket, for one object, you could have multiple versions. So all the older versions will not get replicated. So for that purpose, whatever was existing will not get replicated. You'll have to do that job manually. Are we all clear? Now understand, these are not in synchronization. These are in replication mode. Now when I say synchronization and replication, both are two different things. Okay. When I say synchronization and replication, these are two different things. Now, what is synchronization is, if I delete a file in this bucket, right? If I delete this file here, if these buckets were in synchronization mode, then the same file should get deleted here also. If I'm deleting file in my Mumbai bucket, it should get deleted in my Singapore bucket also. That is referred to as synchronization. But here, your buckets are not in synchronization. So even in the original bucket where you were first uploaded, where you uploaded the file first, from where it got replicated to your destination bucket, if the file is deleted or if the entire bucket is deleted, it does not make any difference to the destination bucket. Are we clear? In both the buckets, should we give replication? No, it is your choice. Right now, I have enabled replication only from Mumbai to Singapore. If I want a reverse replication, that if anyone uploads any file in Singapore bucket, that should also be available in Mumbai region. Then I'll have to configure a similar kind of rule from here, from in my Singapore management console. I'll have to say create replication rule. Now, in this case, it would be a reverse direction. By default, it is only point A to point B. But if you want from B to A also, then you'll have to configure a rule in the reverse direction. Are we clear? Now there was a question telling versioning was enabled when we configured our Singapore bucket, right? Versioning was enabled when we configured our Singapore bucket. Why? So let me tell you in a very simple language. Let's say if I'm uploading this particular file called demo5.pdf, and my purpose is this Singapore bucket should act as a backup of my Mumbai bucket. Yes or no? That is the idea. It should act as a backup for my Mumbai bucket. Agree with me? So let's assume in my Mumbai bucket for demo5 PDF, there are three versions. Okay. For demo 5, there are three versions in my Mumbai bucket, which I'm uploading on daily basis. If I have not enabled versioning in my Singapore bucket, will I be able to manage the version control here? Are we clear why we enabled versioning? Versioning is a prerequisite for your replication to take place. If you have not enabled versioning, you will not be able to configure your replication rules. It's a prerequisite. But what is the logic behind it? I have explained. I hope everyone is clear now. Okay, can I create another bucket by copying existing with all replications rule? No. So Venkata, I think you're referring to, can I clone bucket? Is that your requirement? You're referring to, can I clone my Mumbai bucket with all the configurations, other parameter? No, we don't have that specific option. Like, you can clone your bucket or something. We don't have that choice. So you don't have that option at all. You'll have to manually configure. Can I connect to this S3 from my Unix? So you can connect using AWS CLI or using your SDKs. So when you say Unix, there is no specific commands available for Unix, but on your Unix or on your Linux machine, you should have your AWS CLI toolkit installed. If that is installed, using that AWS CLI syntax, yes, you can connect. Are we clear? So that was about the replication. Can I move forward, everyone? Are we all clear? Is everyone's question answered? Because I'm taking a lot of time answering each and every question. But at the same time, I would request you to be quick to respond. Are we clear? If we want to delete object, then at both the buckets, we should delete it individually. Absolutely, yes. It has to be, deleted manually, individually on both the buckets. And Nimai, what is your question? Could you please elaborate your question? Because S3 is just a storage bucket, can anyone edit or change the content from the internet? No. No. It requires, permissions. When you say anyone, it should have that user should have relevant permissions. So if the user has permission, then he can change. Absolutely, yes. In that case, how the replication helps? So let's say if I am a user, I'm working in your organization, we both are part of the same team. Okay. And I have a permission to make changes on this bucket. When I say changes, I can upload any object, I can delete any object. That is the permission which I have. Right? Now, understand one thing very clearly. If I'm uploading a new file, obviously it will get replicated to my Singapore bucket. No? So when I say someone can make changes, it's not like how you make changes to this bucket code or something. I should access through this S3 console. Are we all on the same page? He cannot change the content of file because this is not your, interpreter. You cannot, if I want to edit this index.html, I cannot edit here. It will not support your notepad or anything, right? Where do we set permissions for users within AWS account? I'll talk about that, Bharat, when we discuss our module 2. Let's hold. So that is there in our discussion. In our upcoming session, it would be discussed. Cool. So I believe everyone's questions are answered. Okay, there is a lot of more to discuss. So let's move a bit forward now. Let's talk about the next part, which is about your data transfer acceleration. Okay. Now let's assume I want to understand from all of you guys. Okay, I'll open this page and then I'll ask my question. Now let's assume that I'm an organization xyz.com. Okay, I'm an organization xyz.com. I've hosted my application in Mumbai bucket. Okay, let's say I have my data stored in my Mumbai bucket only. I have my users across the globe. So help me understand, my dear friends, here. The speed of access for user from India, the speed of access for user from Australia, and the speed of access for users from America, will it be the same or different? Will it be same or different? Okay. The speed of uploading a same file of 1 GB. Let's assume I have 1 GB of file. Okay. And there is an Indian user who wants to upload. There is an Australian user who wants to upload, and there is an American user who wants to upload. So the time taken to upload, will it be same for all or will it be different? It will be different. Who will be able to upload? Who will be able to upload at the earliest? Obviously, user who is based out of India, and then the user based out of Australia, and then the user based out of America. Agree with me? One who are closer to the location. Yes, the user who is closer to the infrastructure, accordingly the latency would vary. So Indian user will have lower latency, Australian will have slightly higher, and American will have a higher latency. right? Now, if I don't want this kind of setup, I want to ensure that users from America, users from Australia or other parts of the world, right? They should not face this latency related problem, right? They should not face latency related problem. Then how do I fix this issue? One of the choices, I create a bucket in their local regions. Yes or no? That is one of the choice. But that will be a costly solution for me, because imagine if I have users in multiple locations across the globe, then I cannot sit back and create multiple buckets, because management is also a problem. Storage is also chargeable, so it is not for free. So it becomes a bigger problem for me. So we have an option called as transfer acceleration. We have a choice, or we have an option under the configuration called as transfer acceleration. Go to your properties section. Okay, guys, those who have some questions pertaining edge location, please hold. Please hold. I'll talk about that also. We have something called as transfer acceleration. Now, transfer acceleration is nothing but which will boost your upload and download. See, edge locations are only suitable for your web traffic. Web traffic, when I say which you want to access. Okay. Now, understand this, how this transfer acceleration works. Okay. So there is a tool which will give you a brief comparison. Now, this particular tool is what I want to bring your attention to. This particular tool is where I want to bring your attention to, right? Now, what this tool gives is, this tool gives you a comparison, telling that if you are a user who is based out of India, and if your bucket is located in North Virginia, right? When you don't have transfer acceleration enabled, what would be the speed? And if you have enabled transfer acceleration, how much of enhancement in the performance you can observe? This tool is gonna give you that brief comparison. Now, how this transfer acceleration works, I'll explain you that. But understand the purpose here. If I enable transfer acceleration, it will enhance my speed of upload, or access by 275%. And there are, for different regions, they have this comparison available. Now, how this works, understand very clearly. Let's come back to this. I believe everyone is clear with the purpose of it. Yes, no. Are we all clear? What is the purpose of this particular option? Transfer acceleration. What is the purpose? Now let's understand technically how it works, so that we all be on the same page. Okay. Now what AWS says, your bucket is located far away from you. Let's say it is in Mumbai region and you are based out of in US. Okay. So obviously when you try to manually upload this file from your American location to Mumbai region, right, it is going to take a long amount of time, because the traffic has to flow via internet, multiple hops and stuff. The traffic has to flow via internet, and that is going to take a long amount of time. But you also want your data to be available only in this location. You don't want to have it here. You don't want to have it somewhere other locations. You're very specific that yes, if there is a bucket existing, that will be in Mumbai location only, because of the compliance, government rules, regulations, XYZ factor. You cannot create in other location to reduce the latency related problem. So what AWS says, that instead of you as a user directly uploading file to your Mumbai location, right, what you do is, when you have enabled transfer acceleration, you enable this transfer acceleration option, right? If you have enabled this transfer acceleration, then we will allow you to upload your file to nearest edge location. You don't have to configure anything. The moment you enable transfer acceleration, we will allow you to upload file to the nearest edge location, something like this. And from that edge location, it would be our responsibility to ensure that file is available in this bucket. Are we clear how it works? We will allow you to upload that file to the nearest edge location. Now from that edge location, ensuring that file is available in your bucket, Mumbai region bucket, would be our responsibility. You don't have to worry about. So obviously, like, will it act as a local bucket for that user in that case? Because user would be uploading the data to the regional location itself. From that regional location, no matter where your bucket is, in which region it would be AWS responsibility to ensure that data is available in that particular bucket. Are we clear what your transfer acceleration is, how it works? And obviously it will come with additional cost. Don't be under impression that it will not come with a cost. It will come with a cost. But now sometimes, when the government rules, regulations are so rigid, right? You might tell me, Prashant, when it is going to cost me, why don't I use another bucket? Why don't I create a bucket in other region? The government rules and regulations. Let's say the compliance says that data cannot move out of India. You don't have a choice. You'll have to have your bucket in Mumbai only. Are we all clear? What is transfer acceleration and how it works? Any doubts? Any doubts? So always understand the simple logic of your transfer acceleration is when you have your infrastructure away from your users. Okay. When you have your infrastructure or your bucket away from your users, and you want to ensure your users are not facing any performance related issues or impact, in those cases you enable this transfer acceleration, and this transfer acceleration will ensure your users have a smooth experience working with your resources. And you can see a brief comparison, like what difference will it make. How it is charged? Obviously it is on the amount of GB uploaded. How does edge location know that it has to upload particular bucket over in India? Whenever you enable this transfer acceleration, it is going to generate an accelerated endpoint, and that endpoint would be mapped. There would be a database mapping that will take place in the infrastructure of AWS, that okay, this accelerated endpoints is in context to this particular bucket. Make sense, Bharat? So user is going to use this accelerated endpoint to upload and access the data. Nimai, are we clear? Cool. So now moving a bit forward, talking about the next part of discussion. Okay. We talked about your S3, a lot of parameters around S3. Now discussing one more part of your S3, which is about different storage classes, on S3. Why and when do we use them? Because when you notice here, when I uploaded here my files, it says storage class as standard. Though I did not define anything, it says standard as a storage class. So what are different options under this? Let's explore that. So like whenever you add a file, if I'm adding this particular file, let's assume, right? Whenever I'm adding a file, under the properties section, I have one choice which I can make, is deciding in which storage class do I want to keep my data in. Whether I want to keep this data in standard storage class, intelligent tiering, standard IA, one zone IA, glacier, glacier deep archive, reduced redundancy. Now, Prashant, what difference does it make whether I keep it in standard storage class or intelligent tiering or any of this storage class? So basically, it makes a lot of difference. Okay. Each of this storage class comes with their own SLA. Like for example, when we see this detail, you'll have more clarity. Now, in detail about this storage class, their associated SLA. So if you notice, if you go ahead with your standard storage class, it offers you availability of 99.99 percentage. The availability SLA is 99.9 percentage, right? If you go with your S3 intelligent tiering, it says 99.9 percentage and SLA is 99 percentage, right? So different storage class have different availability and different availability SLA associated. They have their own different performance also. They have milliseconds, 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 some minutes, 2 hours, few hours, right? They have their charges accordingly. The cost also varies depending on the storage class which you are going with. And certain storage class comes with a commitment, like minimum storage duration is 30 days. So if you're selecting this particular storage class, that means you give a commitment that bare minimum I'll store this object for 30 days. If I'm selecting glacier, then I give a commitment that bare minimum I'll be saving this object or storing this object for 90 days. If I delete before that, I'm liable to pay for entire 90 days. So when do we go ahead with this different storage class? So it depends on the kind of data you have. If I say standard storage class, all your frequently accessed data is kept in your standard storage class, ideally. And your AWS ensures your data is available in 3 or more availability zone. There is no minimum storage duration associated with this. Whenever you want, you upload, whenever you want, delete, and accordingly you're charged. Then you have intelligent tiering, long-lived data. The data is really long-lived, but you don't know what is the access pattern of this data. There are days when that same data is accessed 100 times a day, and then in a row there are 100 days when not even one time the data is accessed, right? You don't know the access pattern of the data, so you can deploy an intelligent tiering where AWS will perform some analytics and it will give you a recommendation which, based on the access pattern, which storage class is more optimal for you to use. Then you have standard IA. Standard IA is nothing but long-lived, infrequently accessed data. You want the data to be stored in a hot storage kind of thing, but it is not very frequently accessed data. Even in this case, your data is available in 3 or more availability zone. Minimum storage duration 30 days. That means if you go ahead and store your data in standard IA, then before 30 days, you should not be deleting. And even if you delete that file, right, you will be liable to pay for entire 30 days. That's how they would charge you for. Then you have one zone IA. One zone IA is nothing but long-lived, infrequently accessed, non-critical business data. The data is not very critical. I'm okay even if the data is available in only one availability zone. There is no need of this data to be available in 3 or more availability zone. Then you have Glacier. Glacier is your archival data. The data yesterday, I think we talked about what is archival, right? The data which you want to keep it for the historic records and purposes. So those kind of data you can keep in your Glacier and Glacier Deep Archive. Like really old data, like 50 years old data. Yesterday I was telling you a university example, right? Like there is a university, it has a data of 100 years old. Students who cleared or who studied in this particular university 100 years back. So obviously now no one is going to ask for a duplicate mark sheet. So those kind of data I can keep it in Glacier Deep Archive. Reduced redundancy, similar to your standard storage class, but this is suitable for your non-critical business data where you don't have any specific SLA. Guys, are we all clear what is the purpose of storage class? Everyone? Yes. So it is your call in which storage class you want to keep your data in. There is no hard and fast rule. Now you might tell me, Prashant, when you say infrequently accessed data, what is the definition of infrequently? What is the minimum frequency, right? What is the minimum frequency? So there is no hard and fast rule around it. As per your business, what is your definition? You need to take that call. AWS says that if you feel the data is infrequently accessed, keep it in infrequently accessed storage class, right? So more in detail about this performance and other things are available in this particular URL. I shared this URL with all of you. Please go through this URL. You'll have more of information here, right? Minimum storage duration means AWS will keep for those days, right? No. Minimum storage duration is whether you store for those many days or not. AWS will charge you in accordance to that. Now, AWS cannot force you that you should store your data for 30 days. Now, what if I want to delete that bucket after 15 days? So AWS says, not a problem, you delete it. But we will take 30 days into consideration whenever we are billing you, if the minimum storage duration was 30 days. Are we clear with this? Can I move forward now? Everyone, are we clear? Any doubts? Long time I haven't heard from a couple of folks, so I'm going to call out their name because I don't see your response coming in. Akul, long time I haven't heard from you very frequently. EG, I haven't heard from you for a long time. Couple of Edureka guests, long time I haven't heard from you. Gagan Singla, Jaisima BS, John Victor, Kaustubh Chaudhary, Nagarjuna Reddy, Narayana, Pawan Kumar, Preeti, Rajesh H, Srinivas, Tapsi Roy, Vamsi. Long time I haven't heard from you guys. Are we clear? Able to follow? Thank you. Because if I don't see your responses, I don't know whether you're clear with me or not. Great. Thank you so much. So now moving a bit forward. Okay. Obviously, guys, you'll have to go back and practice this. I definitely, second that opinion that without practicing, you'll not be feeling confident about it. So that is definitely needed, right? But if you're able to understand the purpose of each and every object, every option which I'm explaining, then yes, practicing should not be a bigger challenge. Whenever you have time, go back, practice, right? Re-look into the class recording. You'll have more and more clarity coming into, right? Okay, even when file is deleted, 30 days is chargeable. Yes, let's say, okay, I'll make this very simple to understand. Okay, I'll make it very simple to understand. We all take a rented apartments. Yes or no? We all go for rented house. In rented apartment, there is one unsaid rule. Whether you use that apartment for 1 day or 10 days, you'll be liable to pay 1 month rent. Yes or no? Let's say after 10 days, you vacate that apartment. Still, the house owner or the landlord would ask you to pay for rent for entire 1 month. The same logic. The logic is that simple. They say minimum duration is 30 days. That means you're liable to pay for 30 days, whether you're using for 1 day, 10 days, or entire 30 days. And if beyond 30 days, obviously they'll charge you accordingly. Let's say you stored it for 31 days, they'll not charge you for 2 months. Okay, they'll not charge you for 2 months. So it would be chargeable only for 31 days. Beyond 30 days, if minimum duration says 30 days, you stored for 31 days, it does not mean that they'll charge you for 2 months now. Are we clear? Minimum duration 30 days is nothing but a kind of liability which you need to pay for. Make sense now? That's a very simple example from our real-time life. Rented apartment, okay? Keep that in mind so that you'll easily recall. Now, moving a bit forward, talking about the next part of discussion. Prashant, what if initially I want the data to be in standard storage class, that object to be in standard storage class, but after 15 days, I want to move it to different storage class. Is that possible? Because I want to save money. I don't want to unnecessarily pay money for something which needs to be archived just because initially I uploaded it in standard storage class. Example, I was telling you example of university yesterday. Like today, if I have announced result, so for first 1 month, the data can be in standard storage class because everyone will be accessing that data. But after 1 month, does it really make sense to keep the data in standard storage class? What is your thought around it? Today, if I have uploaded the result, maybe for first 10 days, 15 days, people will be accessing that result. But after 30 days, I'm pretty confident no one is going to access that data. Agree with me? So does it really make sense to keep the data in standard storage class? No. Any wise business would not want to keep that data in standard storage class, right? So after some time, there should be a provision that we can change the storage class. Yes, it is possible here. All you have to do is click on management, say create lifecycle rule. Create lifecycle rule. Give a name of your choice for the rule. Now again, same like your replication rule, it is asking, do you want this rule to be applicable to all the object or certain specific object? The choice is yours. So I'm saying let this rule be applicable to all the object. Okay. Then select transition current version, transition previous version, expire current version, expire permanently delete previous versions. Right. So let's say currently my object on day one when I'm uploading it is in standard storage class. Right. After some 30 days, I want to, on day 30, I want it to be moved to standard IA. And on day 120, I want to move it to Glacier. And on day, let's say, on day 250, I want this to be moved to Glacier Deep Archive. Right? On day 300, let's say I want this version of the file to be permanently deleted. So if you notice, this is the timeline. You can make this kind of configuration. So day 0, when you upload the object, it is in standard storage class. Day 30, it will automatically transition to standard IA. Day 120, it will automatically transition to Glacier. And day 250, it will automatically transition to Glacier Deep Archive. And day 300, that object will be permanently deleted. So you can make this kind of configuration so that you keep right kind of data in right kind of storage class. Instead of unnecessarily keeping all your data in your costly storage, instead of keeping everything in your standard storage class, you can move right kind of data in right kind of storage class. Are we all clear? And this is not only for your current version, even for your older versions, right? So when I say current version, this is your current version. What is your previous version? This is your previous version, right? This is your previous version. So even for your previous version, you can define this kind of timelines, right? So this is your non-current version. So when do you want to move it to any other storage class? So on day 30, I want to move it to standard IA. Day 150, I want it to be, or let's say day 60 itself, I want to move it to Glacier Deep Archive, right? And let's say day 200, I want to permanently delete the older version. So here it is. You define and it will do that job for you. And you don't have to do this job every time manually. One time you have configured it, rest AWS will take care of. For every object, you don't have to do this job manually. Make this configuration one time, create this kind of rule one time, and it will take care of it. Are we all clear? Now this can be configured at any point of time. But same like your replication, this rule will take effect only for the objects uploaded post your rule creation. For existing objects, it will not do this job. It will not delete or do any of this. Any of transition will not take place for your existing object. For the objects which are uploaded post this rule is created, right? It would be applicable to that. This life cycle is applicable only to main bucket and not replicated bucket, right? If you want, you can configure this rule in the replicated bucket also. But by default, when you configure in your main bucket, if your idea is that will this automatically get replicated or will this configuration will be applicable to your other Singapore bucket also? No, because both the buckets are in replication mode only for the object replication, not your configuration replication. Are we clear? I think your question is from that context. Since they are in replication, will this rule configured will also get replicated? No, only object replication. And this choice is yours. If you want to skip the archive option, the choice is yours. See, you don't want to archive data at all. Remove those transitions. The choice is completely yours. It is not mandatory to delete. It is not mandatory to archive. I don't want to expire the data at all, right? I don't want to expire data at all. That's it. Just transition. Are we all clear? For transition, they are not going to charge you, but your charges would be adjusted. Let's say earlier it was in standard storage class, it has certain charges. Now you have moved to Glacier Deep Archive. So your charges would be adjusted accordingly. For doing this job, they are not going to charge you. So that was about your S3. With this, we complete our S3 discussion. Okay. With this, we complete our entire S3 discussion. So now I would like to move a bit forward, talk about the next part here, which is about your CDN, edge location. See, we talked about transfer acceleration, which is more to do with the data replications of your S3 alone. Now, edge location, when I talk about, okay, it is for all your web traffic. Okay, it is for all your web traffic. When I say all your web traffic, what I'm referring to is for in case if the data is hosted in behind my load balancer, if I want to cache that data also, right, then we have a service on AWS called as CloudFront, using which we can achieve this. Okay, but before I start with that, I want to check with all of you, are we clear till here? Everyone, was S3 interesting to know? A lot of things are very much simple, right? in your cloud. Unlike your on-premises where doing all of this management is very difficult, but in cloud, it's very much simplified. Will you show S3 bucket creation via CLI? So I'll show you that only one part, but again, we'll not have the same thing, entire thing, demonstrated using CLI. I'll show you how to create that. Okay. And I'll share you relevant documents. Okay. So not right today. Okay. Not right today that I'll be demonstrating that. As we progress, I'll show you how to use your AWS CLI. But now if you ask me, Prashant, can you show me how to configure replication rule from CLI? So let me be very honest, we'll not have demo for all of that. Okay, because from the exam point of view, your AWS CLI, they are not going to ask you any commands or anything. Okay, so our focus is to ensure you all of you guys are prepared for the examination. So for that purpose, we don't go much in detail about CLI. And even in your real-time jobs, right, if you're good with this management console, you're good to go. It's not mandatory that you should have detailed knowledge about AWS CLI, because relevant documents are available. It's all about the syntax. So now talking about your edge locations, right? The service on AWS through which we can configure edge location is your CloudFront, right? So I search for CloudFront, I click on this CloudFront. Now pay attention to this part. We have our website hosted in S3, yes or no? We have the website hosted in S3, agree with me? Yes. Now this website is hosted in a bucket in Mumbai location. This website is hosted in a bucket which is available in Mumbai location here. Now if I have users from America, if I have users from Australia, if I have users across the globe who wants to access this bucket, right, and I don't want them to have latency related problem and stuff, right, then I can configure this CloudFront. And I repeat myself, CloudFront is not only for your S3. CloudFront is applicable even when you have your resources or your web servers, websites hosted behind your load balancer on your servers. Since we already have a website, I thought it would be a better idea to show you how your edge location works. Okay, so I say create distribution here. I say get started. It will ask for origin domain name. Okay, it will ask for origin domain name. Now here, as I said, your application can be hosted in your S3 static website or behind your load balancer or some media packages or media store containers, right? It can be hosted in any of these locations. Why CloudFront? Narayana, we discussed that in our session 1. If you recall, sorry, in yesterday's session, I believe. Why edge location? We discussed that, right? Guys, any confusions? Okay, I would request you to please go back, look into that recording. Please check that recording. We discussed in detail. Okay. So your application, your websites, your web service which you want to cache can be in your S3, can be behind your load balancer or some media packages. Okay, mainly do with your Netflix and stuff, right? Netflix or your Amazon Prime Amazon Prime kind of thing. There you'll have some media packages. So right now my website is hosted in this particular bucket, right? So I say here, then it will ask me which all edge location do you want to use. So there are not major configuration that you need to worry about. Here you need to decide which all edge locations, because AWS have around 217 POP locations. Remember the other day when we were discussing, I told you there are close to 217 POP locations across the globe. Now AWS gives you a choice that you let us know which all POP location do you want us to use. So use only US, Canada and Europe. When your users are located only from this location, it makes more sense to use only this edge location. Use US, Canada, Europe, Asia, Middle East, and Africa if your users are located from this location. Now, the third case is you're not sure where all your users are located. Then you say use all edge location. By default, if you don't define anything, it is going to use all edge location. That means what? The data which is getting cached, it is made available in all the edge locations of AWS. And obviously, depending on this, the price also varies. If you're using US, Canada, and Europe, there is certain charges for it. If you're using the second price option, there are certain charges. And if you're using edge, all edge location, again, the charges varies. Okay. It is not that one common pricing for everything. So depending on the number of edge locations where your data is replicated, the charges will vary. All right. So once you're done with this, you say create distribution. Okay. I'm not going into details of your HTTP, HTTPS and all of that because I leave that to your application. So once this edge location creation is in progress, you will notice there is a new URL which is created. Now this is your edge location URL. This URL is your edge location URL. So as a user, whenever you see this URL, it will give you the data from your cache. So I'm waiting for this edge location to be completely created. Okay, it is still in progress. So once it is completely created, right, we'll be able to see the outcome on this particular screen here. Guys, am I making sense? Yes, no? Yes? Fantastic. So while this is coming up, right, we talked about the edge locations and other stuff. It would take few minutes. Okay, ideally that takes some minutes to completely be ready, but you should be able to access the same content of your S3 website. Okay, can you upload something here? No, you cannot upload on your edge location. Please understand, now I know there are so many questions people have, right? Can we upload data using this URL? No. So remember, this is only your cache location, not your transfer acceleration. Your transfer acceleration, I told you, it is different and it is the part and parcel of your S3. Whereas your CloudFront is completely independent service. Your CloudFront is completely independent service which uses the concept of your CDN. Okay, so you cannot upload anything here. This location is just cache location. This is just cache location, nothing else. Are we clear, Bharat? So with this edge domain, AWS automatically recognizes new URL. Yes, it will. So if I give this URL, you notice this. You notice it automatically redirects to my original one. Yes. Transfer acceleration also uses this infrastructure of edge location, but however, that is different from what we are seeing right now. Guys, are we all clear? Any confusions? Yes, please shoot your question if someone has any question. Vivek, is your question answered? Bharat, is your question answered? Rizwan, is your question answered? Can I have quick responses, please? After creating CloudFront URL, what about old URL? You need not give this URL to your users. You can only make this URL public. If my original website is hosted in a different region, then how will this help? So remember, I told you your edge location is not your regional specific. Your edge location is not your regional specific. It is going to cache data no matter where you have hosted. Whether you hosted in Mumbai region or you hosted in Australia region, it does not make any difference to edge location. Edge location's job is only to cache your data. And whenever your user asks, they will deliver that data from the cache. We discussed this yesterday. Instead of making your users traffic to flow all the way, right? So as if I have to put it here, so let's say my bucket is hosted in Mumbai, my user is in America, right? So ideally what happens in normal case, user HTTP GET request has to flow all the way from America to Mumbai, and that will introduce latency. Now if I don't want this latency to take place, so I configure this edge location, and once I configure this edge location, this regional cache will have this data cached. So when first user says www.xyz.com, the traffic will go via this cache. It will be cached here and it will go to your original data center. The response is also cached and given to the user. The first user will see latency, right? Now anything beyond the first user, now if there is a second user who says www.xyz.com, the traffic will not be forwarded back to Mumbai location. It will be delivered from the cache itself. Are we clear, guys? And you can change this edge location URL, right, with your own domain URL. If your client is across the globe also, Manoj, it will not make any difference, because when you have your edge location configured, I showed you, right, use all edge location, there is an option. Is there a way I can hide this URL with your own organization URL? Is that the question, Venkat? Like, I don't want to show this URL, I want to say xyz.com kind of thing. Yes, it is possible. Eventually in our course, we will see that also. We have demo for that as we progress into this course. I'll demonstrate that. Okay. How many region we configure our edge location? Manoj, I think I have answered this question. Can we change the URL manually? So I have shown, as I informed, we have a demo for this where you can use your own organization domain rather than saying this AWS Amazon.com kind of thing. What if there is a change in the website? Edge location will still have old data. So you can define how frequently data should be cached. Like in case if this data is cached right now, how long should this cache be retained? Whether you want this data to be retained for 1 hour, 1 day, 1 month, your choice. So after that time, again, it will send the traffic back to original server and cache the data once again, or it will refresh its cache. Are we clear? And Nimai, is your question answered now? Whenever a user accesses the website, it will redirect to original. So that depends on us. Here I have configured it to redirect so that you could observe that even if you give your edge location configuration, right, it is showing you the data from your original bucket. It depends on us if you want to redirect or not. And when it is redirecting, it is just redirecting the URL, but it is not fetching the data every time from S3. Making sense? And Bharat, you said that can we also have a demo for transfer acceleration? In transfer acceleration, we don't have anything that can be specifically that you will be able to see. In transfer acceleration, all you have to do is just say enable, nothing else, and save these changes. There is nothing else which you will have to do. You will not be able to see any difference there because entire underlying configuration is taken care by AWS. So we don't have any specific demo for transfer acceleration. Are we clear? So now moving a bit forward, talking about the next part here, which is your storage gateway. Now, what is your storage gateway? Understand very clearly. Guys, pay attention to this part. Okay. Do we have slides for this topic of S3? Obviously, yes. We have completed those slides. I'm not reading through slides, but yes, we have slides. Slides are available for you to reference. I would love to spend more and more time on S3 console or AWS console because that is where you will be working, right? So all the slides are available and you can access them anytime, whenever you want. Cool. So now talking about your storage gateway. Talking about storage gateway. Now, when do we go ahead and use this service? Is basically when you have your application hosted in your on-premises. Pay attention. You have your application hosted in your on-premises. Okay. You have your server, application, everything hosted in your on-premises. And you have your storage in cloud. You have your data stored in your cloud. Right? When you have your application hosted in your on-premises, you have your data stored in your on-premises on your cloud. Okay. In those cases, you go with your storage gateway. Basically, your application server is in your on-prem and your data is stored in your cloud and your application wants to access the data. So can I say it requires a kind of integration between your on-premises and your cloud? Yes or no? There would be a need of integration, right? If not, your on-premise server cannot access data from your cloud. Cool. Now, help me understand one thing. There is an application ABC. So whenever we develop our application, in our application, can I say we define how to access the data? Yes or no? Now, for example, if I want my application to access some data from some GitHub, so can I say I give relevant HTTP URL or something like that so that my application understands that this is how it should access the data from so and so repository? Yes, we define that. Agree with me on this? In your application development process, you define if the data has to be accessed from GitHub, then you define that C URL, get data from GitHub, and you give relevant method, relevant protocol to be used. Agree with me on this, everyone? Yes, no, some responses would help me. We define that in our application. Now, if the data has to be accessed from local storage, then can I say we define it separately? If the data has to be accessed from file storage, then that is also defined in our application. Now, each of this, right? Let it be your local storage, let it be your file storage, let it be your internet-based storage, right? On each of this, they have their own specific protocols. They have their own specific protocols. When I say they have their own protocols, so data which is stored in your file storage cannot be accessed using HTTPS or HTTP. You need to use NFS protocol. Agree with me? A data which is stored in your file storage, you cannot access using HTTP or HTTPS protocol. A data which is stored in your hard disk, can you use HTTP or HTTPS to access that data? No. You need to use SCSI protocol. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but you need to use SCSI protocol. A data which is stored in your tape drives, it uses its own protocol. So ideally in our on-premises, when you have, as I was repeating, you have your application server in your on-premises, right? You have your application server here in on-premises, and you have your data stored in your cloud, and your application in your on-premises wants to access this data. It requires an integration, and that integration can be achieved using your cloud, your storage gateway. That integration between your on-premise and your cloud storage can be achieved using your storage gateway. Your storage gateway is nothing but a service which will act as a bridge between your on-premise appliance and your cloud-based storage. So basically it brings your cloud storage closer to your application through standard protocol interface. Through standard protocol interface. Now in storage gateway, there are three types. You have file gateway, you have volume gateway, and you have tape gateway. You have three different types of storage gateway: file gateway, volume gateway, and tape gateway. Now, why do we have these three different types of storage gateway? Understand very clearly. Let's assume that if I'm an organization xyz.com, I'm designing an application. While designing application, right? While designing application, if my application is designed in such a way that it should always fetch data from the file storage, then can I say on my application level, I have defined that it should use NFS protocol to access the data? Yes or no? On the application level, I have defined that my application should use NFS protocol to access data from file storage. Agree? So as a user of that application, if I am trying to access the files, which protocol will it generate? Which protocol request will it generate? As a user, if I'm using that application, right, to access some files, so obviously that application will generate only NFS protocol request, because that is how the application is designed. Agree? That is how the application is designed. It cannot behave differently. If the application is designed to access data from the hard disk, right, then it will use SCSI protocol. If the application is designed to access data from tape drives, then it will use relevant tape methods, right? So depending on how your application is defined and from where the application has to access the data, there are three types of storage gateway. You have file gateway, you have volume gateway, and you have tape gateway. You have file, volume, and tape. These are three different types of gateways, right? So, and more in detail about these gateways, so I would like to discuss in our tomorrow session, because we hardly have 1 minute right now. Okay, just 5 seconds, 4 seconds. So I don't want to continue here further. I would like to take a hard stop. Now, there was one thing which I want to quickly showcase. Someone asked me, how can we define how frequently the data has to be cached, or for how long the data has to be cached? So just showing you that option here. Okay. So here you have something called as cache policy. While you're configuring your CloudFront, you have something called as cache policy. So click on this, and here you would notice you can define TTL. TTL is nothing but how long the data should be cached. How long the data has to be cached. So by default, it is 86,400 seconds, which is nothing but 1 day. But you can define 1 second and can go up to 3,15,000 something seconds. Okay, that number. So this is the amount of time you can keep your data cached. So in case you want to define your own custom policy, create a custom cache policy that my data should be cached only for 500 seconds, right? My data should be cached only for 500 seconds. So you can define that, create that cache policy, and while you're configuring, you call your cache policy. Are we clear? Is that question answered? Someone asked me this. Your name was reflecting as Edureka guest. So I'm sorry, I'm not able to know your actual name. Shubodh. So, all right. Shubodh, is that answering your question? Cool. Now, any questions from anyone? Any questions, doubts, queries? Now, a couple of people were asking me about the CLI. Okay. Couple of people were asking me about the CLI. So here is a reference document. Okay. Here is a reference document for your CLI, just in case if you want to practice. AWS CLI reference. Okay. So this particular, URL has a detailed information or detailed CLI commands for each and every AWS service with samples. You have sample options available how to go about doing that for every service. Now, say example for S3 we were working with. So under S3 you have so many choices again. So it will give you detailed insight about S3 also, right? What are the commands that you can use, how to use these commands and stuff, right? We did not have demo for CLI, but since so many people were asking about the CLI, command references, so you can refer to this particular document. Can we do these labs on our free account? Absolutely yes. But however, please ensure you're within the free tier limit. Now, in case if you're not aware how to check your free tier limit, right? What all is for free, how much is for free, right? So here is the URL. Please check this URL and make yourself aware on what all is for free, how much it is for free, how long it is for free. Okay. But majority of the labs which we are going to practice, you can practice them in your free account. But ensure once you're done, you delete all of that. Don't keep it running to unnecessarily, you never know, unnecessarily you end up getting bills. So ensure whatever you configure, once you're done with your practice, have a habit of cleaning up your dashboard. That will ensure that you are not billed for anything. If I delete an object in Mumbai region, will it get deleted from Singapore bucket? No, it will not. Because the buckets are in replication mode, not in your synchronization mode. So this replication will only replicate the objects. They are not going to synchronize your bucket properties. Great. If no further question, then I think, yes, we are done with our today's session. Thank you so much for all your time and patience. I really appreciate it. Please ensure you mark your feedback without fail. Please ensure you mark your feedback without fail. I would want each and everyone to mark your feedback, right? And if there is anything which you want me to improve upon, feel free to write that in the comment section. And if there is something which you enjoyed, or if you like some approach of mine, please do mention that also, so that I'll be aware and I'll continue doing that, right? And if you enjoyed my session, feel free to mark it as an excellent, because excellent is the only positive feedback. Anything apart from excellent are considered to be a negative feedback. Okay, class 2 recording is added to your module 2 instead of module 3. Can this be fixed? No. No, Bharat. I mean, that is because, they have a default cron job running at the backend, which uploads in the sequence. And I don't have control over it. It's completely managed by Edureka team. I can check with them if there is any, option to do that. But to what I understand, it's all automated. So I'm not sure if this can be changed or something like that. But I'll have once checked with them and further update you. Please give books tomorrow. Rizwan, I'll be sharing book materials towards the end of this course. Because what happens if I give book right now, a lot of people, will not join the sessions back. They'll be like, we already have book material and class recording is anyways gonna be available. So they'll not join the live sessions. So to ensure all of you guys join the live sessions, right, I'll be sharing book materials towards the end of this course. Rest assured, it will be given by me. A lot of material will come to you. Don't worry. All right. Any other questions? Cool, guys. Then thank you so much. Signing off for the day. We'll see you tomorrow.